Welcome to our Christmas service for adults. There's a phrase that many ministers will use over Advent, and even news commentators have used this line over the Advent period, and it's one I want to reflect on. It's the phrase, the real meaning of Christmas, often used to indicate that people are not happy with the way people are celebrating Christmas. But the truth is, there are many real meanings of Christmas. A lot of people look at our nativity plays with the children, telling the story of Christmas, and they're disillusioned with it. It's just a fairy tale. It's not real. And you know what? They're right. Let me give you some examples. For instance, how many wise men were there? How did the wise men travel to Bethlehem? What age was Jesus when the wise men arrived? How did Mary and Joseph travel to Bethlehem? How many inns did Joseph knock on before he got to his stable? What age was Jesus when the shepherds arrived? So facts. We don't know how many wise men there were because the Bible doesn't say. We don't know how they travelled there because it could have been donkeys or camels or whatever, because again the Bible doesn't say. Jesus may have been 2 years old when the wise men arrived, as Herod wanted to kill all the boys 2 and under. We don't know if Mary travelled on a donkey. The Bible doesn't say that either. Depending on how poor or rich or middle class they may have been, they may just have walked. Joseph wouldn't have knocked on any inn doors, as Bethlehem wasn't big enough at that time to have an inn. Inns didn't appear in Bethlehem until hundreds of years later, with the tourist industry that developed ironically because that's where Jesus was born, and so pilgrims from all over the world travelled to Bethlehem to see that. And so that justified having inns. What age was Jesus when the shepherds arrived? Well, that is one fact that we seem to have right in the nativity plays, because the angels came to the shepherds that night, and the shepherds went immediately to see if it was true. So people who base their faith on nativity plays get frustrated because it isn't true. So what happens? Well, they create their own true meaning for Christmas. And that's what we'll look at tonight. So the first real meaning of Christmas. There are so many out there trying to work out what it may be. And for some, it's just the hope that things will work out in the end. My wife has an addiction. Christmas rom-coms. She watches them all the time. The rest of the year she's always watching true crime channels, probably trying to work out how to kill me and dispose of the body without anyone finding out. Now fortunately they all end up with the police finding out who did it and catching them and putting them in prison, which is probably the only reason I'm still here. But come November, I'll come into the house and what will be on the TV will be another Christmas rom-com. The other day it was this one about a princess from some mythical European country who was trying to keep her country's university open, and doing that by having a student exchange with a prestige American university, and she was organising it all herself. But the 30-ish age university professor didn't realise that she was a princess, and of course falls in love with her. But she can't marry him because her father says that she can only marry someone that will be good for the country. You'll never guess how it ends. It ends up with them having to admit that they'll never get married and being miserable the rest of their life. Nah, you know that doesn't work in rom-coms. The university, of course, agrees to the student exchange, saving the European university. And the old king realises that his daughter marrying a professor is for the good of the country. Because that is how it works in these rom-coms. Everything works out in the end. Everything just works out in the end. And I'm sure that's how my wife hopes that life works. And I'm sure that's how many people hope that life works. All we need to do is look at the news, though, to see a different story. There has been an increase in food banks throughout this country. Food banks that are helping families where those are working in full-time jobs. Not people who are unemployed, not slouchers, people who are working hard, maybe with 2 or 3 jobs, and are still needing to use food banks. Does that make any sense to you? That we don't pay people enough for the work that they do, that they need to use food banks? And it's not only that they can't afford to heat the house, they can't afford the electricity to use fridges, so they can't store food. So they can't use electricity to work ovens either, as they're too expensive to run, so they can't heat food. things don't just work out. And if that's your true meaning of Christmas, that you hope things will work out, then soon you will run out of hope. Another real meaning of Christmas is to go the opposite way. The real meaning of Christmas is to find personal peace. We talk about the peace of Christmas. And the only way to get that peace is to cut ourselves off from everything else and just relax. To try to escape from the worries of life, even if it's just for a while. I imagine for some people the ideal Christmas would be a desert island with sunny climes and just lying on the beach with no one else about. One of the growing industries in the world is Christmas getaways. I had a friend that went on a Christmas cruise. That way they didn't need to deal with friends or family. His Christmas was going to be great. The only trouble was he didn't enjoy it because there were too many people on board, and ironically with all those people he felt lonely as they seemed to all be enjoying each other's company and he was alone. That was until he got food poisoning and ended up totally alone and isolated in his cabin. The trouble with peace is that the world keeps on interrupting our peace. We live in a world with 8 billion people, and 8 billion people all trying to isolate themselves from everyone else and find peace. And the irony is that that type of peace is fine until something goes wrong. And then instead of being isolated, we want community, lots and lots of community to help us get better. We want our health services to work. We want our social services to work. We want our police and fire brigade to work because we see that we need these people when things are going wrong. That is one of the weird things about peace. It is people that destroy our peace, so we try to get away from them. But it is people we need when we're struggling. So our meaning of finding peace brings no peace. If I was to ask any of my grandchildren the true meaning of Christmas, they would instantly say, Santa and presents. There's an instinctive hope that Christmas will bring the perfect gift. Maybe it's a hope that someone knows us enough, loves us enough, to give us that one gift that brings us happiness. And every year it's the same. We either get gifts that we don't want or like, in which case we're depressed for the rest of the day, or we get presents that we do like, so we're happy, but it doesn't last. If I was to ask most people 10 days after Christmas what they got, they'd probably struggle to tell me anything that they got. The problem is that that type of happiness is short-lived, and things can really give us a lot of pleasure. Often they do the opposite. Imagine someone got you one of those luxury cars for Christmas, you know, the ones that stand out and you go, wow. The type that stands out in a crowd, that even when you're stuck in traffic jam, you're happy because you know everyone is looking at your car and you in that car, and they're the ones that are jealous. I had a friend that actually had a special car like that. When he was in a car park, he parked as far away from everyone else as he could, frightened that another car might park too close, and then when they opened their door, they'd scratch the side of his. They couldn't park it in the street because what if someone accidentally dented it, or some kid in spite used a key to scratch the side of it. In comparison, I used to have a ladder estate. The joke about the ladder estate was, why do ladder estates have rear window heaters? Well, that was to keep your hands warm when you were pushing them. I never needed to lock the door of that car, ever. I know that because the number of times I forgot to lock it and it was never stolen. I worked out that there was no one ever going to steal it because there's no street cred in stealing a ladder estate. The moment my friend got his luxury car, he had joy. From then on in, all he did was worry about it. Presents don't bring lasting joy. And then there are folk that believe that the true meaning of Christmas is family. It's getting the family round that matters, even if it's just once a year. Mark Nelson, on Breaking the News a few weeks back, stated a truth. Christmas is that one time of year when you get to sit down at home in the place that you grew up with the people that you love and realise why you left. Go! I'll try that again.
Apologies.
That's okay. At least I know it works. And then there are those folk that believe the true meaning of Christmas is family. It is getting the family round that matters, even if it's just once a year. Mark Nelson, on Breaking the News a few weeks back, stated the truth. Christmas is that one time of year when you get to sit down at home in the place that you grew up with the people that you love and realise why you left. I never watch EastEnders. I always found it depressing. And the Christmas version is even more depressing because it shows us how life can be like, real life, with people falling out with people all the time. And families are just hard work. And at Christmas, when they're all stressed out, they're even more hard work. And what is worse, you put all this effort in to make it perfect, and they end up messing it up. I love my family, but they are hard work. My family love me, but I am absolutely sure that they find me really hard work. And that's the problem that we have with them. They can't live up to the expectations that we want them to have, just as we can't live up to the expectations that they have. If that is our real meaning of Christmas, then very quickly we run out of love. So what is my real meaning of Christmas? To me, the real meaning of Christmas starts with me being real about myself. Rosanna and I were in a hotel in Shroom, right opposite the golf course. And one day we were watching this golfer on his own, and he hits a ball down the driveway, and then he loses it. He goes up to the drive to find it. Nothing. Then he goes towards the tee to find it. Nothing. He does this for 20 minutes, going backwards and forwards, zigzagging up and down the fairway. Then he finds his ball nowhere near his caddy and clubs. So he lifts his ball and drops it right beside his golf bag, takes out a club and hits the ball from there. I checked. I knew that was cheating, but I checked. If he had a day pass for that course, it would be nearly £400, and he was playing against himself. If you're paying that amount of money and you're playing against yourself, why do you cheat? What's the point? If you're just going to make up a score anyway, why bother going out on the course? Just stay in the clubhouse, drink a few whiskies and write down on your card that you got 18 holes and won. That's just as real. But that is a temptation that we have in life. That we're just doing it on our own so we can cheat anyway. Take shortcuts wherever and whenever we can. But all we do is make our life meaningless, just like that golf game was completely and totally meaningless. And the reality is that most of us want to hide from is that feeling in our heart, that truth that we think our lives are meaningless. And into this truth comes a God who denies that. A God who offers us another truth, a real truth, if we have the courage to believe it. And this is his truth. His truth is that he loves us. That he watches over us and can guide us. The gift that he gives us in loving, forgiving us, giving us a second chance, growing from our mistakes and making us better people, that gives us joy. But he's put into our life also a purpose to help others. That gives us the peace that we're looking for. The peace of knowing that God is there for us and God has put others in our lives to be there for us as we have been put in their lives to be there for them. And having all of that gives us hope. Not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. Because we aren't dependent on our strength and wisdom to make the world better. We're dependent on God's strength and God's wisdom. And if that strength and power and wisdom is big enough to create this universe and sustain it, then it can cope with whatever we fling at it. That is the gift of Christmas. That is what gives Christmas and our lives meaning. So let us close with a short prayer. This Christmas, may we find a meaning that helps us in our life. The truth of seeing that your love is there for us. That we can rely on that. That gives us joy and purpose. That gives us hope. not just for Christmas Day, but for every day.